Hey Eights, this is Half Brother number 5, part 2. Chapter 4. Dominant Male. Zan, stay still! I hated changing Zan's diaper. It was fine the first few weeks, but when he'd just lie there on the changing mat. But at 4 weeks, he'd started grabbing at the diaper with his fingers and his toes, which were just as nimble. It was like he had 4 hands. At 5 weeks, he'd discovered he could roll over. Now, at over 6 weeks, he could crawl. It was almost impossible to keep him still. It was a few days after the barbecue at the Godwins, and I was babysitting. Mum had to go out and asked me to watch Zan for a couple of hours. Dad was home, but upstairs in his study working. He was too busy with graphs and charts and making phone calls to other important people to actually take care of his own chimp, which was pretty typical. Dad was a big fan of the hands-off approach when it came to parenting. I managed to get Zan's poopy diaper off and was crazily wiping his bottom clean as fast as I could. He looked at me solemnly and then with a hoot flipped over onto his stomach. "Come on, Zan," I pleaded. I grabbed him firmly around his furry hips and turned him back over. "Hey, Dad," I murmured to myself, "how about you change him now and then? How's that grab you?" I wanted to get the new diaper on Zan before he peed all over me. I'd seen it happen to Mum, a big golden arc splashing everywhere. I unfolded the new diaper, but before I could slide it under his bum, he snatched it with his toes and was waving it wildly all around, panting softly, the way he did whenever he was excited and wanted to play. I grabbed the diaper, but just as quickly it was back in his toes again. "Okay, fine. You play with that one," I told him, taking another diaper from the pile. I could feel myself getting angry. I didn't want to be babysitting Zan right now. I didn't want to change his diapers. This was Dad's project. I slid the new diaper under Zan, but he rolled towards me and grabbed hold of my shirt. Before I could get him off, he'd climbed around onto my back and was lowering himself down my right leg. One of his favorite blankets was there on the floor, and he grabbed it in his hands and slid it across the floor, pushing it with his legs. "No way, Zan," I said, catching him up in my arms. Then he peed all over me, all down my chest and pants. He had lots of pee. I swore and put him back down on the floor. "That's bad, Zan," I shouted. "Bad boy." I grabbed a towel and dried myself off. Zan made a little playful pant hoot up at me. "Oh, you think that's funny?" I said. "How about if I pee on you? Would you like that?" I was undoing my zipper when Dad came into the room. "What's going on?" he asked, sternly looking at me. "Zan peed all over me." Dad looked at my open zipper. "Were you going to pee on him, Ben?" "Maybe," I muttered, pulling up my pants. "Ben, he's just a baby. Of course he's going to pee on you sometimes." "Well, I don't see him peeing on you. Why don't you change your freaky little son once in a while?" "Ben, you're shouting," Dad said calmly. Zan was watching all this, looking solemnly from me to Dad, like he was trying to figure out what was going on. "Mom asked you to babysit for just a couple hours," Dad went on. "Does that seem so unreasonable? 2 hours?" "2 hours more than you," I shot back. "You need to work on controlling your temper, young man." Control, another one of Dad's favorite words. I looked back at Zan and felt my anger wash away. His eyes were huge. Above his backside, he had this white little tuft of hair, which all babies had, had for the first few years. It was very cute. He rolled over and I dropped down beside him and started tickling him. His eyebrows shot up and he grinned, and his arms and legs pulled up in excitement. He never got tired of this, and the harder you tickled, the more he seemed to like it. He shrieked with glee. Pretty soon I was laughing too. Whenever I stopped and held my hands over him, he'd freeze, silent, and look at me with his eyes wide and expectant. Then, when my hands dove back down, he'd start panting and kicking again. "Get him in a diaper, pronto," Dad told me. "It's not so easy," I said. "Don't let him get away with it, Ben. You've got to be firm." But I was firm. He's only going to get more stubborn. The way we treat him now is going to affect his behavior for the rest of his life. Show him you mean business. And with that, Dad bent down, grabbed Zan from behind, and picked him up. I think Zan must have been startled because he gave a little shriek, turned, and bit Dad on the wrist. It wasn't a real bite because Zan's baby teeth hadn't come in yet, but Dad's expression darkened. He held Zan up so they were face to face. "No, Zan," he said, with a stern shake of his head. "No." Zan's eyes got so big, his body seemed to shrink. "You're scaring him, Dad," I said. "Good," said Dad. "He needs to know that's unacceptable. We can't have him biting. Just wait till his teeth come. Now get him in a diaper, please." He passed Zan to me and left the room. Zan lay very, very still on the diaper mat and just watched me while I changed him. Dad was right. Being strict seemed to do the trick, but I couldn't help feeling sorry for Zan. We could put him in diapers and pretend he was a baby, but he was still a chimp, and chimps bit sometimes. I'd read in one of Mum's books that they bit each other in play. Their skin was so much thicker than ours, they didn't feel it as much. I'd even let Zan nip me a few times when he was overexcited, but I guess I should have been harsher with him when he did it. He wasn't allowed to be a chimp. He had to be a human.